That's why Manny Pacquiao, after Marquez knocked him out, Freddie Roach said, I want you to take a year off. That was a bad knockout.
Manny Pacquiao is negotiating with Barrios to fight at 147. No tears. I haven't heard one tear. So guess what?
What happens when a man steps into the ring with a legend whose spirit never retired? And what do you do when that legend's return feels less like a fairy tale and more like a dangerous gamble with fate?
That Mario Barrios and Manny Pacquiao has been in serious negotiations.
There are boxing stories, and then there are epics. And this right here has all the makings of an explosive Greek tragedy wrapped in Vegas neon. Joe Rogan, never one to pull punches with his words, has stepped up with a bold, sobering warning. Mario Barrios, don't do it. Don't stand across the ring from Manny Pacquiao. Not because Pacquiao is still the monster he once was, but because the very fact that this fight is even happening raises every red flag imaginable.
Is it a good fight? Is it a good fight? Mario Barrios versus Tank Davis at 147. Yes, it is!
Let's start with the basics. Manny Pacquiao is 46 years old. And that's not just a number. It's a timeline of war, marked by 72 brutal fights, each one leaving its mark. His hands have been weapons since the late 90s, and his legendary battles with Morales, Barrera, Marquez, and Mayweather are now etched into the stone tablets of boxing's Mount Olympus. But Father Time plays no favorites. It doesn't matter if you're the pride of the Philippines or a multi-time world champion. The clock runs out.
30, he's 46, hasn't fought in 4 years, like in your mind, how do you see the fight going? How are you going to beat Manny or...
Here he is again, announced with the kind of showbiz glitz you'd expect from a Tyson comeback or a YouTube influencer bout. Pacquiao's return to the ring isn't just shocking, it's troubling. Because this isn't a warm-up fight, and he's not stepping in with a retired welterweight for charity. No, he's diving straight into the fire, challenging Mario Barrios for a world title. You heard that right. The WBC actually sanctioned this madness. A 46-year-old, inactive, unranked fighter now fighting for a belt against a man.
What do you see yourself doing to him?
I know. I just had to use all of that. Like the as busy as I've been in my career.
Joe Rogan's face might say it best. Somewhere between disbelief and a slow-forming migraine, as he voiced his concern on his podcast. In between the usual jokes and jabs, Rogan made it crystal clear that this is the kind of thing that could end badly, really badly.
World titles in 8 different weight classes. Who the does that?
The way he did it, that quote. I'm a huge fan of Cotto. I love.
Now let's be clear. Barrios isn't exactly the second coming of Sugar Ray Leonard, but he's 30, he's fresh, he's active, and he hasn't spent the last 4 years trading jabs with retirement. While Pacquiao was juggling political duties, shaking hands and delivering speeches in a suit, Barrios was still in the trenches, sweating in gyms, cutting weight, and eating leather on sparring days. So why, in the name of everything sacred, is this fight happening? Money. That's the only honest answer. Cold, hard, brutal economics. Boxing has stopped pretending to be a sport built on rankings and resumes. It's a carnival now, where fights are booked for pay-per-view buys, not for merit. And Pacquiao? He still pulls numbers. His name still draws clicks. He's a living legend with a fan base bigger than some countries' populations. But that doesn't mean he belongs in the ring, especially not
all the way to 154. And knock out all these guys.
This is where Joe Rogan's warning starts to feel like prophecy. Because what's at stake here isn't just a belt. It's a man's legacy, his health, his future. Pacquiao's been knocked out before. Remember that Marquez shot, that nuclear right hand that left him face down, lifeless and motionless? There wasn't a breath in the room when he fell. That wasn't just a loss. It was a global heart attack for boxing fans. And now, we're supposed to believe that an older, slower, long inactive Pacquiao can walk into a championship fight and not just survive but win? This isn't a Rocky movie. There's no magical training montage that reverses biology. No miracle footwork drill that restores reaction time. No amount of hill sprints with Freddie Roach holding a stopwatch can undo what 4 years away from the ring have taken.
Thank you, Manny Pacquiao. Unbelievable career that we may never have a career like that again.
Spencer Oliver, a former fighter turned analyst, said it without mincing words. This is a farce, the sport abandoning logic. Pacquiao's last performance wasn't inspiring. It was a fading echo of greatness, and he didn't just lose to Yordenis Ugas He looked human, slower, flatter, disconnected, the spark dim. Yet somehow, the WBC ranks him at number 5. 5. On what basis? Past glory? If that's the new rule, then let's bring back Mike Tyson for another heavyweight title. Why not? Call up Lennox Lewis, throw him a belt, and book a trilogy with Vitaly Klitschko. Forget merit, forget rankings. Just nostalgia your way to the top. And the critics are right. This kind of absurdity kills credibility. Barrios should be defending his title against real contenders, young, hungry fighters grinding through the ranks, not a retired senator stepping into the ring like it's 2010 again. Frank Warren, ever the businessman, didn't sugarcoat it either. Pacquiao's return isn't a sporting miracle, it's a marketing ploy. Sure, George Foreman did it once, but that was lightning in a bottle. Foreman had a style that aged well, leaning on size, power, and experience. He wasn't trying to float like a hummingbird. Pacquiao's greatness came from speed, explosiveness, and angles. And that's exactly what he can't replicate at 46.
Manny Pacquiao, after Marquez knocked him out, Freddie Roach said, I want you to take a year off. That was a bad knockout.
Spencer Oliver, a former fighter turned analyst, said it without mincing words. This is a farce, the sport abandoning logic. Pacquiao's last performance wasn't inspiring. It was a fading echo of greatness, and he didn't just lose to Yordenis. Ugas, he looked human, slower, flatter, disconnected, the spark dim. Yet somehow, the WBC ranks him at number 5. 5. On what basis? Past glory? If that's the new rule, then let's bring back Mike Tyson for another heavyweight title. Why not? Call up Lennox Lewis, throw him a belt, and book a trilogy with Vitaly Klitschko. Forget merit, forget rankings. Just nostalgia your way to the top. And the critics are right. This kind of absurdity kills credibility. Barrios should be defending his title against real contenders, young, hungry fighters grinding through the ranks, not a retired senator stepping into the ring like it's 2010 again. Frank Warren, ever the businessman, didn't sugarcoat it either. Pacquiao's return isn't a sporting miracle, it's a marketing ploy. Sure, George Foreman did it once, but that was lightning in a bottle. Foreman had a style that aged well, leaning on size, power, and experience. He wasn't trying to float like a hummingbird. Pacquiao's greatness came from speed, explosiveness, and angles. And that's exactly what he can't replicate at 46.
Man. He looked like he was on all the good stuff. He looked like his piss would melt.
Tim Chu, always respectful, couldn't hide his concern. Pacquiao's name carries weight, but that won't hold up under Barrios's fists. This isn't sparring, and it's not hitting mitts with Roach for an Instagram video. This is live fire. You know things are serious when even hardcore, loyal, bleeding Pacquiao fans are conflicted. Nobody wants to see a hero fall. Nobody wants to watch a king crumble in slow motion under stadium lights. But that's the harsh reality. This fight invites. And Joe Rogan, with his usual clarity, is just the messenger delivering an uncomfortable truth. The issue isn't Manny's heart. It's his body, his mileage, the hundreds of rounds, the brutal training camps, the grueling weight cuts, the miles jogged before sunrise. The sparring wars we never saw and the injuries never disclosed. It all adds up. And maybe, just maybe, Manny knows this too. Maybe that's why the fight is happening now. One last dance. One last check. One last roar from the crowd before the lights dim forever. But what if that last roar ends in silence?
It would ding like like one of them Bugs Bunny ones where you get the big mallet.
It's a plea for sanity. For someone somewhere to step in and say enough. For Mario Barrios to ask himself if he wants to be the man who ends a legend, or the man who watched a legend fall in front of him and felt no pride. Because let's be real. If Manny Pacquiao loses badly, the headlines won't praise Barrios. They'll just say Pacquiao was done. They'll say, "We told you so." And if, by some miracle, Pacquiao wins, boxing still loses, because the floodgates will open. Every retired fighter with a pulse and a name will line up for one last payday, and the sport will slide even further into chaos. So what do we do now? We watch, we wait, we hope, perhaps foolishly, that Manny can walk away with his health, his pride intact, and his legend unscathed. And maybe, just maybe, we hope Barrios hears the warning before it's too late. Because fighting Manny Pacquiao isn't just dangerous for Pacquiao. It's dangerous for the sport, for the truth, and for whatever shred of legitimacy boxing still has left. The ring lights flicker again, and the real question emerges. What happens if boxing's most thrilling storyteller walks straight into the pages of a cautionary tale? Imagine the scene. Pacquiao moves like he still believes in magic, and Barrios stands firm with the cold, hard mathematics of youth and power. The audience holds its breath as coaches hover ringside, tapping watches and whispering strategies like secret incantations. And every punch thrown becomes a syllable in a sentence that could end careers. In that moment, boxing itself becomes the author, scripting tragedy or triumph with each crack of glove on.
I was freaking out at first. It's a great honor, for a legend like himself, to want
the corporate angle, that gleaming beast called big money, where promoters clean their glasses and squint at spreadsheets swollen with pay-per-view projections, seeing Pacquiao's name shine like a neon sign in Times Square. They pencil in revenue forecasts that could fund entire gyms, while profit margins sprout wings and soar, blind to the human cost floating in the ring's blood-tinged water. Television executives circle the fight like vultures over fresh prey, envisioning commercials, slow-motion replays, and dramatic pauses before the knockout blow. Because in their world, every ad break is a heartbeat pulsing with the promise of a rating spike.
like I said, it's just my job, just to work on everything. Me and my team have been, training and drilling, these last couple weeks. And,
Scripts for the commentators are laid out months before the first punch lands, crafting narrative arcs with cinematic precision. But no amount of marketing muscle can rewrite the raw, unfiltered risk that lingers in every corner of that ring. Backstage, trainers pace like restless journalists chasing a scoop, adjusting gloves, tapping tape, and circling until the mat beneath their feet feels like quicksand. They know that conditioning can only take a fighter so far. The rest comes, down to split-second reflexes, and reflexes don't age well. Their eyes flick to Pacquiao's warm-up, then to Barrios' shadow boxing, calculating whose body will fold first under pressure. Fans gather in bars and living rooms, eyes glued to screens, hearts hooked by either hope or dread. Some wear Pacquiao jerseys, clutch rosaries and whisper prayers, while others sport Barrios caps, thumbs ready to fire off victory tweets. Social media lights up in a storm of hot takes, memes, and viral clips as the world watches, united by one thread. The haunting electric allure of a legend's last stand.
To contend against my title, and I know this is.
There's the aftermath, the swirling carousel of speculation and what-ifs. If Pacquiao falls early, will his legacy shatter like fragile pottery from a forgotten era? If he endures, will he become a myth reborn, a man who defied logic and the limits of aging? Historians of the sweet science will debate for years, citing punch counts, slow-motion replays, and ringside whispers. The fight's outcome will ripple through boxing gyms and scholarly journals alike, shaping tomorrow's champions and tomorrow's cautionary tales. Sports psychologists will dissect every twitch and turn, decoding the body language of warriors, studying flinches, eye movements, stance shifts, searching for evidence of the mind's cracks, the invisible line between courage and delusion. Their findings will fill academic halls and fuel lectures on the psychology of comebacks. And yet, for all that analysis, the truth remains brutally simple and unscientific. The ring rewards only those who survive. Journalists will chase down quotes from old rivals, dusting off memories like they're polishing relics. They'll stitch together narratives from grainy highlights of Pacquiao's lightning flurries and Barrios' calculated jab. They'll contrast youth and experience, speed and wisdom, in columns that read like scenes from a faded film reel, complete with nostalgic scoring. And readers, still reeling from the spectacle, will devour those stories, searching for meaning, for closure, for a reason to say what they just watched mattered.
Probably like my biggest fight at hand. I'm just
Podcasters will argue into microphones, their voices rising and falling like round timers, inviting ex-champions, referees, and even ring girls to weigh in on what it all meant. They'll replay sound bites, dissecting every syllable and pause for hidden truths, while their followers flood chat rooms with predictions, regrets, memes, and defiant defenses of their picks. The fight will echo across airwaves in a continuous loop of opinion and overanalysis. Meanwhile, in gritty gyms around the world, Fighters will return to training, some with renewed hunger, others with newfound hesitation. A few will vow to retire before their clocks run out, while others will double down, convinced that age is just a number and legacy is worth the risk. Coaches will tweak routines, balancing grind with recovery, emphasizing rest as much as raw power. And the next generation will watch Pacquiao's final dance, seeing either a warrior's farewell to be admired, or a cautionary tale to be pinned to the wall, a warning about when to walk away before the bell tolls for good.